Got a 2009 Nissan Titan here. We went out and diagnosed this truck the other day. It's got an intermittent issue with the right rear wheel speed sensor that we found to be a bad wire leading up to the wheel speed sensor. Oh, lights are back on again. It all depends on how the rear suspension flexes and bends that wire that we're losing signal. So I've got a new wheel speed sensor we ordered for it. As well, this thing overheats when you let it sit at idle with the air conditioning on. The fan clutch is very weak in it. As you can see, it's 90 degrees outside right now, and this truck does sit a fair amount idling with the AC on for what it does. So we're going to go ahead and get a new fan clutch thrown on there for them too, so that they can let the AC run a little more and don't have to hop back into a hot truck every time they get out of this thing. And there's almost no resistance to that fan. That clutch is pretty worn out, so hopefully that'll solve their problems when it comes to getting hot at idle when you got the AC running. Which, you know, I know this, you know, that sucks, especially you head into Nashville for the day or something, you get caught in a little bit of traffic. It sucks to be waiting for an accident and have to kick the AC off just because you're sitting there. We'll get that fixed up pretty easy. I'm hoping that if we take the intake tube off, that we'll be able to get it without pulling the fan shroud. But if we have to pull this fan shroud, it doesn't look like it's going to be too terrible. And I think we'll be able to squeeze it out this side without having to remove the upper radiator hose. Now, this is a 5.6 liter V8 in this Titan. I've never really had many issues with these. I don't usually have to work on the engine or transmission very often in these things. When I worked for Caterpillar, I actually used to drive a Nissan 1-ton van that had this powertrain in it, and I loved it. And just working on getting these 10 millimeters that hold the fan on loose. I've gotten 3 of them. I gotta try to get the bottom one now. But with these, your best bet is to just try to get them to break loose like this. There is a holding tool you can put on there, which if this wouldn't work, I would have gone and grabbed that. But usually you can get a wrench on there and the belt tension will hold it. There's a bird that came to say hi. Anyway, so just gotta reach my arm down there and get the bottom one, then we'll get this intake pipe out of the way, and I'm hoping that fan will sneak out of there, which I think it will, but we'll see. I believe we've got that bottom one broke loose, but I need to get in there better to see, so we're gonna... I don't know if that one's actually grabbing anything. Doesn't appear to... there we go. Don't have anything holding it. It's just never been off. This truck may be a 2009. It's got less than 90,000 miles on it, so I don't believe that anyone's ever really been inside of this thing for any type of major work or repairs. Pliers, and we'll get these couple vacuum lines off, or not vacuum, but breather lines. So grab them lightly with a pair of pliers and wiggle a little bit. They'll slide off. You don't want to grab them too hard or pull too hard because you don't want to break the plastic that they go into, but these things have most likely never been off. So you want to be careful when you take them off that you're not going to break them. If the hose breaks, that's not the biggest deal. I mean, it is a molded hose, but you can get away with making a hose for it. But if you break the plastic, bad time. You try to epoxy it or do a plastic repair, but in all reality, you really would need to replace it. And that is your guys' base right now, and the filter housing there, so I gotta be careful I don't move it too much. There we go. That opened up a lot of room for us. Okay, so we've got all the bolts off. And we're going to see if it's possible to get this thing out of here without taking the shroud off. And I don't believe it's going to be. Doesn't look like we're going to have the clearance needed to get this out of here. I'm going to put the camera down for a sec. I will try again with 2 hands just to make sure that it's not something simple, but I think the shroud's going to have to come off. Like I said, the shroud doesn't look like it's going to be too terrible. I need to see what holds it down on the bottom. But it looks like it's only going to be 2 bolts at the top and then pop off those lines that are hooked into it. And I should be able to fish it out of here. So if I have to get it out, it doesn't look like it's too bad. But I'm going to double check just to make sure that doesn't fit out of here any other way. So my impact in the worst spot. Alright, we'll go take this real quick and get it thrown back on. We're going to go ahead and get the fan shroud tighten back up on here. Already got all the hoses popped back in. The fan's got 2 of its 4 nuts sitting on, but they are only finger tight right now. I'm going to get them all started before I get in there with a wrench and get them tightened. But it's in there. Just going to be reverse the disassembly here. Shouldn't be too terrible. All things considered, this is actually one of the easier ones to do. I mean, the 4 bolts can be a bit of a pain. I almost prefer the single nut that's threaded because I have the air hammer removal set to get those off. But at the end of the day, it's not the worst thing. It's just there's not a lot of room to get in here. So you got a tiny nut that you're trying to work with your fingertips, which I think that one's going to need 2 hands to try to get started, but just get them all back on there and started, and then we'll get them all tightened up. That pretty much wraps up the fan clutch install. But while I was here, I noticed that battery terminal's not looking so hot, so we're going to go ahead and get some battery cleaner while we're in here. We're just going to go ahead and clean the whole thing up for him. When you guys see stuff like this, if you're working on it, don't even question it. Just go ahead and clean it for him. It takes you 2 minutes, and the customer's going to be happy about it in the end. Getting the rear wheel speed sensor out now. There's just a 12mm that holds it in here. And it kind of loops up and around, goes up there. The plug is up on the frame rail. Just right there. So overall, not terrible to get to. Get this 12mm out of there. I should be able to get the sensor out. It's starting to go. There we go. So, got that out of there. There's some dirt and debris on the end of it, but double check it to the new sensor. And that looks correct. So there isn't a sheet or not a sheet, but a cover or anything around it that I need to worry about getting out of there. I just gotta get it disconnected from the frame up there. This might be two-handed to get this released, but we'll unplug it, get the new one laid in here, routed into all of its holders, plugged in. We should be good to clear code, then go take it for a test drive and verify the repair. Really easy swap on these. There we go. It's bolted back in. We've got our wire ran, plugged back in. We got it popped back in the frame for the connector. So everything should be good now that once we get that battery cleaned up, we can throw the scan tool on this thing, clear out the codes, pull up the data stream, and go for a test drive, and make sure that we're no longer seeing really weird and intermittently the sensor dropping out, which it appeared to be mainly when we were hitting bumps on this side. Come back here and mess with the wire, and we could see some stuff going on with it, so it should have it fixed up for us. But you always want to verify before you give it back to the customer, because nothing works worse than when you go to fix something, you give it back to them, and the same problem pops right back up. Always, always, always go back through and verify your repairs. Go ahead and clean the whole battery. Let that stuff start working. We'll do a little scrubbing on it and make sure that it looks pretty good. So if you guys have never used this stuff, it changes color when it comes in contact with battery acid. So definitely tell that there's some acid that's gotten out on top of this battery, but let's do a little bit of cleaning on it. Do what we can to get rid of the corrosion and make it a little bit nicer. That's quite a bit better. There is a little bit that's still in there that I can't really get to, but I'm not going to take the battery terminals off. I don't want to mess with any of their settings. So if we're doing it while we've got it hooked up, I'm pretty happy with that. It looks a lot better. The battery's only from 2018, so I'm not worried about the battery having any issues. It starts up no problem, but just get it cleaned up a little bit and leave it a little nicer than when we found it. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and clear our diagnostic codes for the ABS. Lights went out. Now this does have a check engine light, which is for a issue with evap, which I spoke with the customer about, and at this time they are not interested in taking care of that issue. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and get my data stream pulled up. We are going to take it for a drive and make sure that we don't have anything coming back. There we go. We've got our wheel speed sensors pulled up there. This is a newer scan tool. I just picked it up recently. My Matco died a while back. Screen went out on it. So I ended up getting this one. Came from O'Reilly's. It's okay. I mean, not bad for what it is and the price. I don't do a lot of work on general automotive anymore. I try just to stick to large truck and ag equipment, so I don't have need or can't really justify the price of buying another one like my Matco right now. So this has been working pretty good for me. I think it was $400-ish, and ABS, SRS, live data. It is bi-directional, and it'll do OBD1, OBD2. It's got a lot of features. I'm pretty happy for the price. Actually hear that fan working now. It's been idling for probably 20 minutes now. Temperature's looking good on it. We're taking it out for a bit of a road test right now to verify our wheel speeds are looking good. Well, I think we've got it taken care of. We're going to go ahead and return it to the customer, have them use it, see if we have any other issues.